Hello and welcome back to Nadya's Identity Files. I have with me the beautiful and so talented and smart and impactful Linda Rendelman. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Hey, thank you. It's nice to see you, and thank you for the opportunity, Nadia, really.
Absolutely. And so you're over there in what town in Indiana right now?
Well, every summer we go to Brown County, Indiana, which is the southern part of Indiana. It's absolutely beautiful. A lot of people come here in the fall because the leaves are so gorgeous, and we have a family cottage. So, I'm glad we have Wi-Fi, quite honestly, so that we can have this conversation, because it's really sketchy down here, but I'm sure
wow. So you're like kind of in the throngs of the woods, like you're in the forest right now.
Totally, on a little lake, and we kayak, and actually, when I was talking to you yesterday, we had a chipmunk in the house we were chasing around, so it's a lot different than Los Angeles, but it's fun.
Yeah, we need that time to get away and get in nature to decompress for sure. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you today about identity and your work with the Women Like Us Foundation and a whole bunch of other exciting things, including the important campaign that the foundation has recently launched to fight sex trafficking. But first, I want to dig into a little bit about you and your personal journey. You have a lot of professional identities, including being a writer, speaker, businesswoman, and obviously you're the founder of the foundation. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and what the catalyst was for starting the nonprofit?
Okay, thank you. And I'll try to keep it succinct because it's kind of a long journey, and cut me off if it's too crazy.
Don't you worry.
So years and years ago, I started a magazine in Indianapolis, which is my hometown, called Indianapolis Woman. And I started it with another woman, and I was always very motivated to help support women's causes and to help women. Now, you have to remember that I was born up during the big bra burning time, and I was raised then, and that the identity of women was so different as I was being raised as a girl, as opposed to it is what it is right now. So we were just learning about really women going to work and not staying at home, and a lot of changes occurred during the 60s and the 70s. And so I had always been very involved in that. My mother was a very strong woman. In fact, I used to say she was my little town's first feminist, because she believed in working and she ran her own business. And so I got a lot of that from her, I think. Fast forward through college, my degree in public speaking and English, and then my master's in women's counseling. It was just a really good fit to start a magazine with a friend of mine. And because we had the writing background, we really had the interest. And it was actually one of the first local women's magazines that had ever been done across the country. We found one other one in Virginia. So it was the time when it was, Mother's Day and Family Circle, and Women's Day, Family Circle, those kinds of magazines, where we got to learn about other women, but there wasn't really anything. It was obviously before the internet. There wasn't anything to really meet and hear the stories and have collaboration with women that were just like us.
Right.
Of course, that all fits to fast forward to the Women Like Us Foundation. So we launched a local magazine, which led into our own radio show every Sunday morning, and eventually there was even a television show. So, and literally that was back in the 80s. So
wow.
Fast forward, that was sold. We loved it. We did it for I think it was about 3 years we did that, and then situations change and so forth, but someone bought the magazine, and it did actually, it's fun, it actually stayed on the stands for about another 15, maybe even 20 years.
Wow.
So it was really cool for me to walk through the grocery store and see the magazine that I had actually was my brainchild, and that was cool. So, but moving forward as a single mom, etc., I just always, I took a break, but I always wanted to get back to my passion, which was motivating and empowering women and bringing us together to support one another. But it's really important that I say not in a bad way, not like we were weak, but in a way like we needed, but we needed to connect and learn from one another so that we could eventually move on and earn the career that we wanted, to understand how to speak our voice for our own particular needs and share that with other women. So fast forward, I was about the year 2000 that the internet started coming around, and the internet was like, oh my gosh, this is a whole new world. This is a whole new way to communicate. And so even though I had another business, at that point I started a company called Business Women Connect. And I'm still in Indianapolis, but it was an outreach opportunity for me to connect with other women that are doing that are in Indianapolis, that are in business, and to come together, network with one another, to promote one another's businesses. So a different level than what it was with the magazine, because now we have a lot more women actually in the business world. And I did have my own television show on Fox called Business Women Connect. It was on every Sunday morning for 30 minutes. Produced it, wrote it, invited the guests. I did everything but actually stand behind the camera.
Oh,
everything.
I relate to that.
I knew you would. Yeah. So that was. It was really cool. It was really fun, and that's why I'd asked you earlier about sponsors, because it is not cheap to do that. We didn't have the internet at this point. We had to actually go on regular TV. Well, we did have the internet, but we didn't have internet shows yet.
Right.
And so I started that show, and then I had always wanted to write a book. And so when I had Business Women Connect, I also had the for-profit side, and I created the Business Women Connect Foundation. And just to speed this up and to get to the end of your question, so I discovered while I had my television show, I had a knot on my neck, and I always like to tell this story because I want other people to hear me, that if you have a knot on your neck, go get it checked out. Mine was big and it was hard, and I did not feel sick. I went to the doctor. They said it's nothing. I went back. It's still here. It ended up that I had stage 2 squamous cell carcinoma coming from my tonsil.
Oh, my.
So, yeah. So as a speaker and a person on television, I completely lost my voice through the treatments, through the radiation, through the whole illness. So I lost my voice, and I had to stop my TV show. I did have some wonderful television personalities in Indianapolis that did my show for me for a while, and then I realized that I needed to stop. But to still be able to speak to women, I thought, well, and I started getting better. Obviously, I have my voice now. But as I was healing and I did start getting better, I thought, well, maybe I could do a radio show. And I remember specifically going to the radio station to talk to the gentleman about doing a show with them. And it was a talk radio station in Indianapolis. And I just prayed that my voice wouldn't give me away, that my voice wouldn't give out on me during this interview. And I remember that time specifically. But eventually, so Business Women Connect went on. And while I had my cancer, not only is it very scary on so many levels, but I kept thinking I didn't get to write the book I wanted to write. And so as I became better and became well, I wrote the book Women Like Us, Real Stories and Strategies for Living Your Best Life, and that propelled into a lot of interest in women's stories. And so I sold Business Women Connect and started the Women Like Us Foundation, and that's a lot of what we do. And we've been around for 10 years, and I'm all healthy, and I'm living, and I've written a couple more books since then, and that's where we're at today. And we can talk more about that. So
for sure.
That's kind of,
yeah, that's an incredible story. I mean, what impact did you feel, coming out of TV broadcasting, moving into radio? What did that do to your identity? Did you feel like you had to kind of like redevelop yourself in a way, or just how was that for you?
Well, not at all, because Business Women Connect had a really good presence already in the community. And so, no, in fact, I loved radio. I loved it more than TV. I didn't have to put on my makeup. You get it.
It's true.
No, I just really, really did love radio, and it was fun. So I did that. I think I did radio for maybe 3 years, something like that. So, yeah, I would probably do that again someday if I had the time.
Yeah, it does take time, that's for sure. But now, of course, with the advent of the internet, I mean, there's a lot of time-saving tools at our disposal to get these things done more expeditiously, so we can continue to reach large numbers of people. So going back to, the time when you formed the nonprofit Women Like Us Foundation, what, when you were thinking about doing that, did you already have in mind the 3 pillars of impact, or what were you thinking in terms of impact that you wanted to have with the organization?
Right, and thank you for asking me that, because I really think that if anyone is watching who is thinking about starting a charity, it's definitely a process, not only on the legal side, which you can find that information on the internet or, with your attorney or wherever, to set it up legally for the IRS and to set up your corporation. But we started very, very broadly. We wanted to do everything. We thought we could change everyone's life and help someone over here and help someone over here. But in reality, and I mean truly, one of our big initiatives when we started was the humanitarian travel that we still do. But we were going to India, we were going to Costa Rica, we were going to Serbia, we were going to Uganda, we were going to Kenya. And we spent a lot of our time outside of the United States finding, and the mission of the foundation is supporting women that are changing the world. So finding women that were doing great work and traveling over there and helping them and raising funds to help them with their sustainability, which is still what we still do. That is what we do. But we were so stretched. And then we were going, wait a minute, the United States has a lot of things that also we need to help with. And as someone said to me one day, well, we're almost a third world country at home right now during the Great Recession. And so we felt it was time to take a really hard look at the areas and drill it down a little bit more. And how we came up with our 3 pillars of sex trafficking, homelessness, and education is because from the work that I had done, from the things that I had read, just from an organic kind of education being in the nonprofit, I really did realize that those 3 areas, not only are they really critical to women, they're critical to everyone, but they are very, very critical to women. We see so many women that are homeless through domestic violence, through lack of education, through being a sex traffic victim. And so those 3 pillars I came up with because they really all work together. They align together. For example, our campaign this year to raise funds for women that are fighting sex trafficking so that we can grant that money and help them continue their work is very much also still affected by homelessness and education. And next year, as we move into supporting homeless people and women that are homeless, it's very much played also on education and victims of sex trafficking or sexual abuse. So it really does all work together, and that's where our focus truly is. Yeah,
there's a huge intersection, obviously, because women who have been victims of sex trafficking often become homeless. Often people who are already homeless are going to be preyed upon for sex trafficking. And then of course their possibility for furthering their education is severely impacted, if not cut off, occluded, because of the terrors and the impacts of sex trafficking. So when you went into this, were you already conscious of the intersection between the 3 pillars, or did it just kind of come to you as you were working on the organization?
It's key, because what I also realized as I was thinking this through is, what have I done so far? What have we as a foundation done so far that I'm really passionate about? And I thought, that's it. It is. We in 2012, I believe it was, in Indianapolis. I'm out in LA now because we've grown so much. But at that point, when the Super Bowl came, I myself never realized that sex trafficking is right in the United States. And I know there are a lot of people that still don't realize that either. So that really opened my eyes. And we had 400 women in a big room that were like, and speakers teaching and creating awareness about sex trafficking right in the United States, and certainly in Indianapolis, because the Super Bowl was coming up. And as you may or may not know, when there's big events, the traffickers show up to either service the men that come there for those kinds of things, which does happen, or to find girls that they can get involved in sex trafficking. So yeah, it all came together. Like, I keep leaning toward wanting to do the work over here, and it was time to narrow down. And so yeah, organically, really.
That's awesome. So in terms of women's led initiatives that have been focusing on sex trafficking or homelessness or education, can you maybe name one or two that you really saw a lasting impact from?
Yes, absolutely. And there's so many out there, thank goodness. But the ones that we've supported so far are, and the other piece is, Nadya, that when we support one, we like to support it for 3 to 5 years. We don't do just a flash in the pan thing and move on. We really want to hang with them and create awareness about them on our website and continue to help fund them. So for sex trafficking, and what we're working for right now is, one is the Dream Center in Los Angeles. And not only have we given them funds to help them, but we have also had volunteers that have gone and mentored the girls that live there that have been rescued from sex trafficking through the Dream Center and through the community, and to help mentor them and help them not recover, because we're not doctors, but help restore them. Or I'm sorry, not restore, because we're not doctors. That's a very, we don't know how to do that really, but what we can do is work with them when they're in the third stage. It starts with rescue, then it goes to restoration, and then it goes to recovery. And so in the third stage, to actually be able to help them build their self-esteem, mentor them on, maybe what it's going to be like when they leave, possibly help them to find a job, that kind of thing that we've volunteered. So the Dream Center has been one. Also, there's another organization called Saving Innocence. And Saving Innocence is so amazing because they actually do go out with the police and help get the girls off the street, house the girls, and put them through this same process. And we've done the same kind of thing. We've granted funds to them. We've written our blog about them. We've created awareness about them. And then we have also used volunteers as well. So there's two. There's another one called Restore Inc. that we did granted funds to just last year, that is doing really the same work, but they're in the Midwest. So those are three examples, and truly what we're looking for with this campaign that we're doing right now that we can talk more about is also, we just put up on the website the grant application. So women who are getting started, and there are certain qualifications, they do need to have been a 501c for at least 3 years. They have made some impact already. And then, of course, they have to be accountable for the money that we give them. Right. But it's a great opportunity for us to learn about the other women that are out there that we may be able to help, depending on how much funds we have and what we're able to raise. Yeah.
One thing that I noticed, for people who are kind of new to understanding the social sector and the nonprofit space, is the differentiating between a foundation, which is still a nonprofit, and a quote-unquote regular nonprofit. I think some people have the false impression that because a foundation grants money to nonprofits so they can move forward to, fund their initiatives and make their impact, that means that the foundation doesn't need their own support as well. Can you maybe touch on, just kind of like on a logistical level, the distinction between a foundation and a regular nonprofit, and how your foundation, Women Like Us, works to grant funds to these women-led initiatives?
Exactly. Yes, and that's always confusing to people. It always is. So let's just take Restore Incorporated. They are not a foundation. They are a charity. We're a charity too, but we're a foundation-led charity. So Restore, for example, they put together programs and they initiate these programs and they get volunteers to help them with these programs. But they actually have programs. With a foundation like the Women Like Us Foundation, we don't specifically have specific programs. What we do is we're at a different overarching level, where what we do is we find people who are in need and need funds to be able to run their charities, because charities are businesses. They are businesses. You have to have dollars to pay for your phone. Charities have to have insurance. We could get sued if we don't have insurance. You have expenses to get the word out, to get on the website, to have printed material, everything. So everyone has expenses. And I've had people say to me, well, why don't you get one product and do that one product? And the example of which is a great charity is Tom's Shoes. Tom's Shoes, they make shoes, they give a pair of shoes away, right? But I always, because of my passion for supporting women and women's work, I always have wanted my work to go further than one product. And so that's why we started the Women Like Us Foundation, which our mission is to promote gender equality and social justice through supporting women-led causes in areas of sex trafficking, homelessness, and education. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that clarifies it a lot. That is a question that I get from a lot of people, because they understand that I have some familiarity with nonprofits and the social sector. They're like, well, what's the distinction between a foundation and a nonprofit? I've worked with somebody who is an estate planning attorney, and she advises her clients, if you want to leave a lasting impact, consider establishing a private nonprofit foundation to maintain your legacy, and so on and so forth. So I think that some people just have false or incorrect associations with a foundation, so you really helped clean that up a bit. And
and I'll just say within that but we do have opportunities for people to volunteer with the women's causes that we support. Thus the Kenya trip, thus the sex trafficking, but that would be through salons that we talk about on the website, because sex trafficking is so private, except for that recovery stage. You can't really work with the victim. So
right.
So, it is confusing.
Speaking of the Kenya trip, you recently executive produced a documentary that showcased a lot of your work in Kenya. Can you talk a bit about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Boy, talk about a journey. Anyone that's listening that may want to try to do a documentary, it's quite the journey. Wonderfully enough, we had Sally Colon-Petrie, who is a filmmaker. And I don't know what we would have done without her, because she did know what she was doing. And it all came about because we were going on one of our Kenya trips, 3 years ago now, 3.5 years ago, I guess. Sally had decided that she wanted to come with us. And it all started because she said, well, I'm going to do a small film, and we can use that to promote the foundation, to create awareness of our work. And then as we got into it, it actually became a full-length documentary, which actually I was just reviewing it this morning. It's an hour and a half long.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that, there's a couple of sides to it. There's raising the funds. We spent 2.5 years raising all the funds to be able to get it done. The documentary itself is called Women Like Us, 3 Journeys, 1 Mission to Change the World. And it also includes my daughter, Kat Saber with E! News, who is a co-producer. I'm executive producer. Kat and Sally Sally's the producer and Kat's the co-producer. So we're really excited about it. It does show. The first half is is really pretty much everything about our work in Kenya, and then the second half is our work in the United States. But the whole documentary includes not just the Women Like Us Foundation story. It includes every woman actually that's in the documentary has another organization that we support. So it hits the homelessness, the education, and the sex trafficking, which is what we're about. So it's really succinct altogether. But at the end of the day, the reason we put this documentary together is to send the message to women and really people everywhere that you can do something to make a difference, whether it's holding the hand of a child walking across the street, or something in your community, or something really big like, having a foundation and going to Kenya.
Right.
So there's lots of different ways that you can give, and the documentary that also partners with my book is all about women's stories that explain how you can do it and how important it is, and encourage and motivate and inspire others to do the same. Yeah.
Where has the documentary been screened so far?
It was the first thing it was at, and actually the only place so far, although that's getting ready to change, is it was selected to be a part of the Los Angeles Women's International Film Festival. And it was shown to a packed house. It was at LA Live, and it was absolutely, there were hardly any, I don't think I saw one empty seat, actually.
Wow.
So it was very, very exciting. We got a great response to it. The media were there. It was cool. It was cool. So where we're headed with it is to do a big opening in Los Angeles, and also in the Midwest, and very likely out in New York City as well. So that makes me happy that there's 3 kind of regions that will be able to promote it. And what we'll do with the documentary is a couple of things. We will use it to help fundraise so that we can continue to give grants to women, and also to motivate, inspire, and bring women together.
So where can people see the screenings? How can they keep up with the calendar?
Sure. Well, we have a calendar on the website, but we will be, as soon as we release it for screenings, it'll be all over our newsletters, all over social media. I have spoken. A dream of mine is to get it into colleges and universities. And I'm speaking with a publicist right now in New York to see if we can, again, raise the funds to be able to even make that happen. That's my dream. That's my dream, is to really get it a lot of places. So it's a new journey for me. I've never done a documentary and tried to figure out how to, you can have something really fabulous that can really make a difference, but if you don't get it out to people, it doesn't, I don't know, you don't get it's good for you, but you can just make such a difference, if you can get it to the next level. Yeah.
It's just tough when everything always comes back to funding. But, thankfully, because, as we were talking about earlier, we live in the internet age, there's a lot more opportunity to reach larger numbers of people from a number of different backgrounds than, you could say in 1994.
That's very true. That's very true. And there's grants. And we just finished writing a grant for one of our schools in Kenya that we support. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, you have to, as everyone says, if we could just find one really, really good big donor, we'd get it. That's so long, really, really far away. But that's how it goes,
Hey,
Charity.
Big corporations watching, if you're watching, the foundation's website is on the screen. So.
Yeah, exactly. Give us a call.
Right? Absolutely. So going back to the current campaign that's fighting sex trafficking, when we were talking about the 3 R's, what was it? Rehabilitation, restoration, and recovery. Am I getting those right?
Not quite. It's rescue, restoration, and recovery.
Okay.
And that's some people that work in sex trafficking throw in another one, but that's basically it. Rescue, restoration, and recovery. Yeah.
So as far as I'm aware, it costs $10,000 to take one sex trafficked victim through those 3 R's. Is that correct?
Yes.
Some people who don't understand, what everything that goes into that process, they might say, well, why is it so much? Do you have, kind of a breakdown or a general scope of what that would include?
Yeah, right. Well, first of all, to rescue, it can take a long, long time to even get someone off the street. So you have an 800 number, and you hope that you can get them information. And I don't know how much time we have, but
We're
in the doc. Are we okay?
Yeah, we're good.
So in the documentary, it shows my daughter and Sally actually riding in the streets of LA, looking for victims of sex trafficking. And I did the same on my own. It's not in the film, but it is in the book. And it takes, a lot of the trafficked victims don't know that they need to be rescued after a while. They're so into this fear with this pimp, and so kind of hypnotized into the whole life that they don't know how to get out of it. And then when you get down the road, they've been so abused for so long, things just get crazy. But and they're very fearful, of course. So the rescue has a lot of components to it, and it also involves the police. But once someone, breaking it down dollar-wise, once someone is rescued, they have to have housing. They have to have workers that will be with them. They have to get paid. They have to have medical help. They have to have legal help. And sadly, all of that costs money. Now, I don't have a breakdown of what each of those things are, but that's all a part of it. And then when you move to the restoration process, it's really very much the same thing. It's meeting with counselors, meeting with psychiatrists, meeting with doctors, keeping them safe, having them in a location where they don't have to be fearful. So again, to run these things, it does cost funds. And then the recovery is the same thing. In fact, in recovery, a lot of times the girls are taken to farms outside the city. They're taken to homes that is many times run by a not-for-profit. And it's back to breaking that down. And so $10,000 is kind of a rounded number that we've come up with that could help one girl. Yeah.
Right. That's crazy, because there's over a million people, children, who are being sex trafficked in the United States.
Crazy.
So, and just thinking about the sheer magnitude, if it costs $10,000 per victim. I mean, we have all of these people who, it's so insidious in the United States because, it's not in our face. And I think that's why a lot of people don't see it as a problem, because we are in a culture where so much is constantly in our face all the time. So just because people are not seeing it laid out in front of them, they believe it doesn't exist, when in actuality it does. Truly, yeah, that's exactly right. And people aren't knowledgeable about even what to do about it, or the signs to look for if a child or someone is being trafficked, because they can be out in the community, but still if you know the signs, like they don't have a social security card, like they can't ever drive anywhere, like they never bring anybody back to where they live. There's a lot of things and they're in the book as well, that you can look for that make you realize that you might want to have this child checked out, or this girl. And I might also tell you that we always refer to sex trafficking that's coming from women, or women being the victims, girls being the victims. Domestic minor sex trafficking is the actual term for children that are trafficked anywhere from 10 to 15 years old. And that happens a lot. But the other thing I was going to say is it's not only girls. There are estimates that as high as 30% of the children trafficked are boys. Wow.
And we don't know those numbers exactly, and it's because it's so hidden, especially with boys, that it's hard to get the estimates for sure.
Do you happen to know what states in the United States are plagued more by this epidemic than others?
Yeah, actually, the southern states. There's a few down south that are really, like Louisiana and what was the other one? Arkansas, where things can just get buried. Indiana is one that does have sex trafficking. One of the women, not that I'm plugging my book, I don't mean that, but my knowledge comes from the women that work in this field. And she's one woman that I have interviewed and is in the book is the deputy of human trafficking, deputy prosecuting attorney, I'll get it right, of human trafficking in the state of Indiana. And It's very, very prevalent, and but the hard part is finding them and finding the pimps and then prosecuting the pimps and rescuing the girls. And it was interesting because she told me that when they rescue girls, they don't immediately say, well, you're gonna, we don't want to know all the legal stuff that he did to you and illegal, and we're going to prosecute him. And they take them to a safe place and just let them rest and just let them be. And then eventually they will come around to talking. And then that's when they're able to, if they don't have the pimp already, then they're able to kind of narrow in on him. And the other thing, Nadia, is that the internet has made a big difference in sex trafficking. There's a website called Backpage.com. I did just read, I think they just took it down. But
really?
That's where,
wow.
Yeah, that's where people were going to find these sex trafficking. That's where Johns were going to find these girls and then have sex with them, and many, many, many of them are sex trafficked victims. Yeah. So at the end of the day, if men, it's a supply and demand. If men would stop using Johns, if they would stop using these services, there would be no need to find these girls, and the whole business would stop. So fortunately, it's really interesting to watch how men are getting involved in this, and the leadership needs to come from men,
right?
To stop the use, and that could eradicate the whole thing.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that goes back to a lot of issues. I mean, men are super privileged, right? I mean, we talk, especially right now in light of what just happened in Charlottesville, there's a lot of conversation around, what it means to be privileged, especially, having white privilege or being like a white male of privilege, right? And I think that, people need to accept where they fall in this crazy world that we're in, this crazy institutional landscape, because this is, racism is an institution, sexism is an institution. Racism, in many ways, is derived from sexism. Men were, when back many moons ago, when you had just a man and a woman, men were sexist towards that woman, and by virtue of being in a place of power, the man is sexist, which a lot of people don't understand. The same applies for racism. So it's up to them to acknowledge this and get rid of their white male fragility and step up to the plate and do something.
Exactly. Yeah, very well said. If I ever have a show, I'll have you on.
Yay. Awesome.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I mean, times have changed, the values have changed, the mores are different, but we need, what it boils down to is leadership, strong leadership on many levels, really from women and men, honestly. And, there are women that are involved in sex trafficking on the pimp side, too. There really is. I mean, we don't think about it, and it's not as nearly as much, but they're in there. Right. They're in there with her also.
But quite often, those women have been oppressed or, maybe abused when they were children. There's some sort of pathology that's probably embedded in that person.
Yes. And in fact, my friend who's the deputy prosecutor said, I never met a prostitute that hadn't been sexually abused. Never once. So it all rolls in there together, and people have asked me, so what's the difference between sex trafficking and being a prostitute? And the answer to that is that many of prostitutes were sex trafficked with children and also sexually abused, but you get to the point where you don't know the difference, or you can't get out of the game that they call it, because there's more money there, because that's what because you are trapped and you stay trapped the rest of your life. I mean, so it's just so complicated.
What are your thoughts on the current political climate that we're in right now? I mean, as somebody who works with women and women's empowerment, I mean, there's many of us, and of course, people of color, LGBTQI, people who are really fearful about the current trajectory that we're on. I mean, what are your insights on what's happening?
Without getting political,
Maybe a little.
it, well, I mean, the, in some ways, this is a very, very exciting time for me in my entire life, because women are coming to the forefront more than ever before. You know, whether Hillary Clinton won or lost, she was there, and so that is actually quite exciting. I think that women have a way that men are learning more about, quite honestly, in the boardrooms, about how to collaborate, how to communicate in a different way. Men are still very rows and columns, and women have a way of getting things to happen with connections. And so I love the fact that women are getting more involved. I am very, very nervous about where we're going right now and the leadership that we have right now. It's just, I mean, I watch it, I read about it, because it's important to know what's happening right now. I am in no way ignoring it. As a Women Like Us Foundation, we stay apolitical, and we are certainly, non-denominational, because we should be, because we're for everyone. They don't need our opinions. That said, I'm a feminist, and I very much believe that that what feminism means is not a bad word, like when we started, but a feminist is someone who does believe in equality for everyone, and not just one certain race or one certain, the color of your skin, or, men or one certain gender. So I do feel like where we are now, that's going to take us back a long ways, but I'm very encouraged by the strong women that are standing up and defending not just women, but human beings.
Absolutely. And I think now is the time where, we really have to step up as a community of women globally, to make an impact. So I'm hoping that in light of the current times, it's just going to catalyze people to really step up to the plate and let their voices be heard, and not just fall into the trap of, constantly complaining about the status quo.
Or feeling like they're victims, because we're not victims. There are ways, and I'm just so proud of people and women that are standing up. I mean, my goodness, what was it? 750,000 in LA for the Women's March?
Yeah, it was a number crazy like that. And I know in DC it was also huge as well. And these marches were all over the world. They weren't just in the United States.
Right. So we live with that and keep doing our part, and I think it'll all work out, but it's very, very stressful times, for sure.
Very stressful indeed. Well, thank you so much, Linda, for your time. I want to encourage everybody watching to go to the Women Like Us Foundation website. The website is on the screen. Again, it's www.womenlikeusfoundation.org. On the top of the page, you will see a big banner that will direct you to the sex trafficking campaign. Please click on that. There are so many really cool perks that will come out of making a donation, but even bigger than that, you're going to be making a difference in a young woman or young boy's life who has unfortunately been victim to sex trafficking. So if you could please check it out and at least share the campaign, spread the word, spread awareness, it would make a huge difference. Linda, I want to thank you very much for your time. I have one last question for you. I always ask all my guests this question.
Okay.
It puts them on the spot a little bit, but it does keep with the theme of the show. If you could identify your identity in 5 words, just pin it down in 5 words, what would they be?
How I feel about my self-identity, who I am?
Describe yourself in 5 words, your identity, yes.
Gotcha. I'm a half full, not half empty glass person, so I'm an optimist, for sure. I am energetic. I am motivated by helping others. It makes me happy. It can be addictive almost. It's like, who gets the most out of it, me or them, So, and a lot of people that do that would get with that one. So that's 3, right?
Yeah, we got 3. 2 more.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I mean, I always see the future as something that is wonderful and marvelous, and I can't wait for the next day to get up and see what's going to happen the next day.
You're a futurist.
I am a futurist. I am absolutely am. And then, really, truly, I'm a family girl. I love my family, my children, my grandchildren, and that's a big part of my identity. Yeah.
Lovely.
And I'm a woman. I forgot to just say I'm a woman.
That's right.
So that's
Hear her roar.
exactly.
I love it. Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you so much for telling me about your story and the work of the organization. I'm so excited to see the impact that the foundation is going to have on so many women across the world, and with this campaign in particular. I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy your forest and your bird clock.
Exactly. Thank you, Nadya. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye.
Bye.